Hey, what's going on, guys? Mango Sun here, bringing you another Destiny 2 video. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over sprint lock and how to combat it. But if you want to get better at Destiny 2, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, what this has done for us is annoyed the hell out of us, honestly. Sprint lock is a really big issue, but I digress. So the thing that sprint lock is, what is sprint lock? What does that even mean? Is when you hit the L3 button and you begin to sprint, shortly after you begin to sprint, you stop sprinting for some odd reason. You begin to just start walking. This takes us out of the momentum that we once had, the push to that control point or a push on that enemy in order to get the sliding shotgun off. It just takes us out of the fight completely, and it's not fair that this is happening. So what's causing the sprint lock? What's actually happening? Well, let's go over to our settings and go to controller, and we're going to go to button layout. Now, the default button layout looks a little something like this. It just shows you where all the little buttons are at. That sprint's locked to L3, and so on and so forth. But the thing that I want you to do is go ahead and hit that default and go into custom. This is going to bring up the UI for, or the user interface for, the key bindings of the controller. So you're going to see that sprint is locked to L3, and we have one called hold sprint. Now if you turn that on and leave it on the press, then this is what ends up happening. My thought process was, if I press the button to initiate the sprint and then have hold sprint on the L3 press, then it would initiate the sprint and hold the sprint. But that's not what ended up happening. So I go back to my button layout, go back to the custom, head all the way back down to the sprint, and I check out to see if I could change it to the long press. Maybe me pressing the L3 button and holding the L3 button would keep me in a constant sprint. I did find that it initiated a bit of stutter after a little bit, like the game was thinking, well, we're sprinting, but you want me to hold the sprint? I don't know what you're trying to do. So, like, it does end up, if you like press it and just keep holding it down, then yeah, then it will work. But what that ended up doing for me is causing button fatigue by pressing down on the L3 button just a little bit longer than I wanted to. So I went back into my sprint settings and I decided, you know what, I'll just double tap it. Maybe the press of the L3 button along with a double tap of the L3 button would lock it in place and just keep me sprinting. But what that ended up doing was causing just the same results as if I had the L3 button as a press and the hold sprint button as a press. So I went back to the drawing board yet again. I headed back over to the settings, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to disable the sprint button and just have it as a hold sprint. I'll push the button and it should hold the sprint. So I went to do that, and it looked like I was having a mid seizure in between me trying to run. Like my legs just didn't work and my knees didn't know how to bend. So I said, no, I guess that didn't work either. So by this point, I was like, you know what? I don't think it's the button itself. I don't think it's the hold sprint or the sprint type of capability. I don't think that that's what it is. I think it's actually the button L3. So I ended up changing my sprint to the circle button and adding the hold sprint to a long press on the circle button. Now, for some odd reason, this ended up working. But then you may be thinking, well, my crouch is the circle button, so that's just a lot of things for circle. I changed it to L3. Left it on press. So now the crouch that was once the circle button and the sprint, which was the L3 button, now have swapped positions. This allowed me to push the circle button once, maintain a constant sprint. I will never long press the circle button to hold sprint. I just don't know why these things just kind of work in tandem together, but you just never press the circle button for the long press. But having the L3 button as a crouch wasn't super inconvenient. It was barely an inconvenience. So with the L3 button being the crouch button now and the circle button now being the sprint button, well, this kind of just changes up everything because we have more things attached to the circle button than we once had. We still have the Titan Barricade, Hunter's Dodge, Warlock Rift abilities and such that are still attached to different variations of pressing the circle button. And you would think that, yeah, this may end up messing up my class abilities by having it on the circle button, because now I'm going to be tapping circle to be sprinting and accidentally use my Hunter ability or my Titan ability or my Warlock ability. But left as it is, just leaving it with the long press, with the double tap, with the long presses for the other two subclasses, for the other two classes in general, it does end up messing up activating a class ability unless you're a hunter, because the hunter's ability is activated by doing a double tap of the circle button. Now, most of the people that watch this video are probably hunter mains, so this won't affect them too much. But for someone who uses a different class, such as the Warlock, or using the Titan subclass, the average way that you would end up activating your Barricade or activating your Warlock Rift, you would just need to go back into your custom control settings and change those to the double tap circle. As you can see here, I left my controls as it is with having it as the long press and keeping all the class abilities just the way that they were, with holding the circle button for the Titan Barricade and holding the circle button for the Warlock subclass, and I cannot activate my Barricade. So I go over to the settings menu, go all the way down to the class abilities, and I end up just changing them to the double press method like I said before. Now, this actually, to me, feels better than using it as it was intended, because now when I double press the circle button to activate my Barricade, I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but I feel like the Barricade activates a lot faster that way. There's no lag in me double tapping the circle button and the Barricade popping out versus holding the circle button and then pushing it, because now I have to wait for the controller and the input to catch up with each other. No, now I'm just double tapping it and the Barricade's popping right on out as soon as I finish double tapping that circle button. And to me, that feels like a good effect to have when activating these animations that take so long to activate. So now whether I'm a Titan, a Hunter, or a Warlock, I'm just going to double tap the circle button. Now, as I use my Warlock here, I'm going to demonstrate what it's like when I use my Phoenix Dive ability in the air by double tapping the circle button. Immediately after I double tap the circle button, the animation begins, the Warlock begins to descend to the ground. By double tapping the circle button, it feels more natural to double tap the circle button in order to ground myself instead of holding the circle button in order to descend back to the ground. The input from holding the circle button versus double tapping the circle button, I feel like the hold the circle button's input just takes too long to register. So all in all, let's just go ahead and recap. What we're trying to do is eliminate the sprint lock or the depress of the L3 button when we're pushing forward on the control pad or on the left stick. What we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain a constant sprint and also give us ease of use for our crouch and our class abilities. So we switch over the sprint to circle, we switch over the crouch to L3, and we switch all of our class abilities to a double tap of the circle button. These small changes are going to help you transcend the sprint lock that has bothered us for so long until Bungie fixes the sprint mechanic in the game in general. So I hope this video helped you guys out in trying to figure out how you want to change up your sprint mechanic. And if you like the video and want to get better at Destiny 2, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.